So, Borderlands 4 is finally here. After years of memes, chaos, and loot showers, the question every fan is asking is simple. Did Gearbox finally take this franchise to the next level? Or is it just the same formula with a fresh coat of paint? And honestly, after spending hours upon hours inside this mayhem simulator, I can tell you this. It's both familiar and surprising at the same time. Over the next 2 hours, I'm going to take you through every corner of this game. We'll talk about first impressions, how the world feels when you actually step inside it, the satisfaction of the gunplay, the new mechanics that give the game some fresh legs, how the story lands without spoiling anything, how it feels to play solo versus co-op, the visuals and performance across different platforms, and of course, whether this game is worth grinding for in the long run. And at the very end, I'll give you a clear verdict with pros and cons, so you can decide if Borderlands 4 deserves your time. Sounds like a lot, right? Don't worry, we've got 2 full hours together, so grab your snacks, or if you want to stay in character, maybe grab some stale space tacos and a vending machine soda, and let's dive in. Booting up Borderlands 4 feels like coming back to an old friend, except that friend has now been hitting the gym, learned a couple of parkour tricks, and bought a new jacket that's loud enough to blind your neighbors. The very first thing that struck me was how much more alive the world feels. Past Borderlands games had this tendency to rely heavily on wide, barren wastelands with some outposts sprinkled here and there. But in this one, the maps feel far more vertical, layered, and dynamic. There are cliffs to climb, rooftops to scale, and alternate routes to discover. I spent a solid 20 minutes once just climbing and exploring, ignoring the actual mission marker, because for once, I felt curious about what was hiding off the beaten path. And this is coming from a series where exploration was usually just run forward, shoot everything, loot chest, repeat. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still Borderlands at its core. You're not suddenly in Elden Ring here, but the way the environments are designed made me slow down, look around, and actually want to engage with the spaces instead of just sprinting through them. The addition of more agile movement helps this feeling a lot. Wall running, ledge grabbing, and fluid traversal mechanics add an entirely new rhythm to how you approach combat. In earlier Borderlands games, I often felt glued to the ground. Fights were chaotic, sure, but they always happened in a sort of flat plane of existence. Here, you've got enemies attacking from above, snipers on rooftops, melee enemies climbing up after you. Suddenly, verticality isn't just decoration, it's part of the fight. And this leads to some of the most fun encounters I've had in the entire series. The first time I sprinted across a wall to dodge enemy fire while unloading a shotgun into a swarm of psychos, I had to stop and laugh. This is Borderlands, but with an extra layer of athleticism that makes the combat loop so much more engaging. And of course, because this is Borderlands, it's not all smooth. You'll still have a few clumsy jumps where you think you're parkouring like Titanfall, but end up face planting into a skag pit. But hey, that's part of the charm, right? Now, let's get to the meat of the game, the shooting. Because let's face it, Borderlands has always been about one thing: guns, guns, and more guns. And Borderlands 4, it nails the feel. The weapon variety is as insane as ever, but this time it's not just quantity over quality. Guns actually feel distinct, impactful, and surprisingly balanced. Firing a Jacobs revolver feels punchy and precise, spraying a Malawan SMG lights up the battlefield with elemental chaos, and yes, there are still guns that make you laugh out loud the moment you fire them. But what I loved most this time around is how enemies force you to switch it up. You can't just pick one weapon and steamroll your way through the campaign. Enemies have smarter AI, different resistances, and unique attack patterns that encourage you to adapt mid-fight. And when you finally get into those late-game battles where the screen is exploding with elemental damage, enemies are swarming from every angle, and your co-op partner is screaming because they're down and need a revive, you realize Borderlands 4 recaptured that cathartic chaos that made the series legendary in the first place. Speaking of chaos, let's talk about vehicles for a second. In previous Borderlands games, vehicles often felt like a necessary evil. You'd hop in, drive clunkily across the map, hit a rock, flip over, and wonder why you didn't just run on foot. In Borderlands 4, they've finally figured it out. Vehicles are faster, more responsive, and actually fun to use. They're also more integrated into combat and exploration, which means you're not just using them as a glorified taxi service between missions. I actually caught myself choosing to drive instead of running. And that's a sentence I never thought I'd say about this series. Imagine me, happily cruising across the wasteland, guns blazing from a mounted turret, thinking, yeah, this is fun now. Progress, my friends. Of course, no Borderlands review would be complete without talking about the story. Don't worry, I promised no spoilers, and I'm sticking to that. The overall tone is still the same blend of over-the-top humor, meta jokes, and cartoon villain energy. Characters still yell ridiculous one-liners in the middle of firefights, Claptop still finds a way to annoy you, and yes, there are still missions where you question whether the writers were just sleep-deprived on energy drinks. But here's the twist. The pacing is much better. The story feels more structured, with emotional beats that actually land, and the humor is more balanced. Not every joke hits, but when they do, they remind you why Borderlands has such a unique voice in gaming. At the same time, there's more weight behind some of the narrative arcs. Don't expect a dark, brooding tale. It's still ridiculous, but it's ridiculous with purpose. And that alone makes the campaign feel more satisfying to play through compared to older entries. Now, let's shift gears and talk about co-op, because honestly, this is where Borderlands shines the brightest. Playing solo is fine, and you can absolutely enjoy the entire game on your own, but in co-op, the magic multiplies. Borderlands 4 makes smart adjustments so that enemies scale to party size without just inflating their health bars. This means you and your squad actually have to work together, coordinate abilities, and share loot decisions instead of just nuking everything in sight. The crossplay support also ensures you're not struggling to find teammates in 2025, which is huge for keeping the community alive. I played with friends across different platforms, and the experience was smooth, chaotic, and full of those laugh-out-loud moments that only Borderlands can deliver. Like when your buddy goes down in the middle of a firefight, screams for help, and you have to make the split-second decision, do you save them, or do you let them bleed out while you secure that legendary drop? Spoiler, I went for the loot. Sorry, bro. Let's not ignore the visuals and performance either. Borderlands 4 is launching on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series consoles, with a cloud version rumored for later. On PC, the optimization feels solid. I was able to maintain high frame rates even in the most chaotic firefights, and the settings menu gives you plenty of control. On console, the game manages to keep things stable, with the occasional dip when the entire screen turns into a fireworks show of explosions. The cel-shaded art style continues to be the series' secret weapon. It's timeless, it's stylish, and it keeps the game looking fresh without chasing real Potterism. Honestly, even in 2025, Borderlands looks exactly like it should. Bold, colorful, and unmistakably itself. Replayability is another big talking point. Borderlands 4 doubles down on the looter-shooter grind, and if you hate grinding, nothing here will change your mind. But if you're the kind of player who gets that dopamine rush from opening chests and chasing perfect rolls, this game is a casino built for you. The endgame scaling feels smoother, the loot loop feels rewarding, and the variety in skill trees gives you genuine reasons to replay with different characters. One run I played as a gun-heavy build that turned me into a walking armory, and in another I leaned into elemental chaos, melting enemies in waves of fire and electricity. Both felt distinct enough that I didn't feel like I was just replaying the same character with a different hat. So let's bring it home with the verdict. On the positive side, Borderlands 4 delivers incredibly satisfying and balanced gunplay, new movement mechanics that add energy and flow to combat, world design that finally feels alive and explorable, co-op that is chaotic in all the best ways, and performance across platforms that holds up. On the negative side, the humor still won't be for everyone, the grind is unapologetically grindy, some missions do fall into repetitive patterns, and while the story is improved, it's still not going to win any awards for narrative depth. Is Borderlands 4 worth it? If you're a fan, absolutely. This is the most refined, fun, and balanced entry in the series. If you're new, it's actually a fantastic place to start because it takes everything the franchise is known for and polishes it to a modern standard. It's not revolutionary, but it doesn't need to be. It's pure Borderlands mayhem dialed in for 2025. And for me, that was more than enough. And hey, before you go, don't click away just yet. If you enjoyed this breakdown, I've got another deep dive waiting for you, the Ghost of Tsushima review in 2025. It's on the end screen right now, so check it out and keep the journey going.